what I've started doing is making the patch cable from Nissan to Speeduino. So I've got a Bosch 88 pin connector here. I bought an old ECU, this Coilpack ECU, and just cut this off. That was the easiest way, and it was the cheapest way as well. These are quite expensive, these 88 pin ones, relatively. So I've started adding the wires. Got a few on here at the moment. Fuel pump. Put a couple of wires on here that we'll use for the PWM idle air control valve. Those are the push and pull wires of the two coils. And I've got the injectors on. Now, I've got all my drawings back out from when I wired in a mega squirt, so I've been going over them because it was a few years ago, so I've forgotten exactly what some of the notes that I'd put on them. Now, I do remember the trouble was we need to keep all the sensor grounds separate from the power grounds. So all these sensors here that we can see, from the vehicle speed, engine coolant, throttle, all those sort of sensors that we need, they all have a common ground, and that ground we try to keep separate from any power grounds, because the power ground are noisy. So fuel pump grounds, stuff like that, we want to keep that away from that. And what Nissan have done with the Micra, unfortunately, is they have the fuel pump ground, which when we follow it back also goes to the OBD2 connector, but it's also the ground for the vehicle speed sensor and the camshaft position sensor. Now what we don't want, it then goes all the way down here and it becomes the shield for the crankshaft position sensor. We don't want this power ground here connected to these sensors and via these they're jumpered and bridged across to other grounds. We want to keep that separate, so what we'll do is we'll break the wire here and I put a switch on that, because on my main daily driver that I have the mega squirt connected to, plugged into, I have the ability to swap back to Nissan's ECU. We won't be doing anything that extreme on this one. We're just going to get it running via the Speeduino, but I have actually put a switch in between here so I can switch it on or off depending on which engine management I'm using. So we need to cut that wire. We'll probably just put a quick bullet connector on or something like that, just for it's easy that way. So that separates the power ground, so we can just make sure we concentrate on all the sensor grounds. So what I've had to do also is there are two sensors that aren't actually linked to the other grounds. The throttle position sensor, I think, yes, so I've got the engine coolant and the throttle position sensor ground. They're separate. They're not connected to any of the other grounds. So what I've done is I've just linked their grounds to one of the grounds here at the connector end. So that's all our grounds done for any sensors that we've got. So what we'll do is, you don't want to see me soldering wires to these pins. It takes a while. What I'll do is I'll solder a couple of the wires so you can see how it is, but it is quite awkward to get in here and whatnot. I've left them long. I actually cut them down on the when I built the Mega Squirt patch cable. And I used actually the base plate from Nissan as well, the ECU base plate, to tie everything down. But I think on this one we'll just make a jumper cable. Okay, so we'll get on. We'll start putting some wires on here. I've got all my old documentation. Some of it's a bit iffy, and I've spanned it across a few things because I do remember one of the problems was the crankshaft position sensor. It's a Bosch VR sensor, and as you can imagine, there isn't, Nissan don't give out any data on it, and a lot of the time they're bespoke to car manufacturers. There was a black and a white wire on the crank sensor. I do remember that I put the black as VR negative and the white as VR positive, and that didn't work out well. Bosch have actually wired it black as the positive signal, so I had to go on Bosch's website and look up the tech spec because I couldn't get the car to idle. So that's why some of my info spans a couple of different ECU diagrams. These are great though. What I did is I managed to get hold of the Nissan workshop manual, and I then just printed out and joined them together, the whole of the ECU wiring in the car. If you're going to put a standalone engine management on your car, really, this is what you need to do. It makes things so much easier, and you can get that out of the way. You can start writing notes on and following wires back, like you can see what I've done here. Don't know why I've done that one, but there you go. What was that one for? Pin 11, don't know. Anyway, it did something. So, enough of that. Let's put this here so we can see what we're doing. I've idented them just to make life easy. You can just ident them however you see fit, with a bit of tape or whatever. It just makes my life easier. Okay, let's add a couple of wires to this so you know what the score is, and then come back when I've populated the whole thing. Oh, one extra thing. Let's just get some wire. What I do have. Let's cut a piece of that off so you can see. This is going to be the wire that I'll use for the crank sensor. It's a twin core, twisted and shielded cable. Don't know whether we can just take a bit of this is just an old piece that just cuts off. Let's cut a bit of that off. So as you can see here, what we've got is we've got the two cores, and we've got the packing wires, just so that we can get rid of those. Those packing cores are no good. So we've got the shield, and we've got the two cores. So that's what we'll be using here for the crank sensor. We want that shielded. This will be twisted and sleeved. got some sleeve in here. We'll shrink that down. We'll sleeve it. We'll sleeve the end. That will go on there, and that will make sure that we're shielded all the way up to the connector, because it comes from the crank sensor, I can't speak now, into here. It's a shielded cable, so we might as well shield it to the connector block, of which I have actually got. Just go and get that. Yes, it arrived. So we'll be connecting our IDC cable to here. Obviously the other end's going to the Speeduino. And then we've got 40 screw connections that we can connect our this to. So it's a temporary thing, but it'll allow us to run the car and move anything around if we get it wrong. Because I have wired throttle position sensors up wrong in the past, so this makes life easy. Obviously, as a final fit, you wouldn't be using this, you'd be making a fixed connection, because, well, you're only in for a world of pain, aren't you, eventually, if any of them come loose. Right, let's carry on. Added some more wires now. As you can see, it's quite heavily populated now. I've indented them as well, just to make things easier. So I've got 4 more wires just to connect up. So let's do those now. So we'll tin up some wire. This is going to be the throttle position signal wire. 71, 73. Tin that up. And let's get organised. Get a solder. Check that. Looks good to me. Got that one. The next one along is intake air temp. So what's that? 77, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we'll tin that. What we'll do is we'll use Nissan's intake air temp sensor off the MAF. It has an integral temp sensor. We can use that. I have measured the resistance of it and everything. Works fine. I don't have the connector for the GM sensor, and this makes it more plug and play, doesn't it? So 73, 4, 5, 6, 77. Put a bit of solder on there. Get myself a wire. Strip it. Yes, I do have some wire strippers. They're not very good on this wire. That's why I strip it with my snips. So let's put this one on. And it literally is just a matter of going through each pin with your wiring diagram. Let's get rid of that. Let me clean that one up. As you can see, I've already done pinouts for everything. So we've got those on. We'll put a bit of sleeving on. fatten up the wires. Because I haven't got any sleeving that's just the right size. So we'll just fatten them up. Like so. And then what we can do is we can put this DR25 on. And shrink it down with a hot air gun. Later on, that'll stop any of the wires shorting out. And then, so we've got the manifold air temp sensor input. Put an ident on it. And the TPS input. If you haven't got any idents, or you don't have access to an ident machine to make them, write them on. Bit of masking tape, anything. And that's basically it. Shrink them down. We've only got the coolant sensor to put on and the positive. Yes, we need a live. I have one of those. Here it is. Yeah, there we go. Right. So that's that. There we go, 58. So pin 58, that gives us 12 volts in position 2, and it also gives us 12 volts and the start position, which is what we require because we need 12 volts constantly. So that's wiring that up. So next time, next video, this will be fully populated and hopefully connected up to the terminal block, which in turn goes to the Speeduino, and we can actually look at doing a bit of work on the car then, because the coil packs on the Micra are dumb coil packs, so we need to tap into the lines for those and use an igniter to fire them. That's for another video though.